he is one of my favorite people, so I'm excited to do this. He really doesn't need much of an introduction, probably for most of you who are here and follow him. But Chris has been a dear friend of mine since we started Healing Strong in 2013. He is a stage 3 colon cancer thriver. He'll tell you more of his story. He is a published author. We've got several of his books here today. He is a great man who loves the Lord. He loves his family. And his story is remarkable, and he's the real deal. So if you get a chance to talk to him today, I hope that you will pull him aside, because he is just one amazing human being. So Chris Wark, come on up.
No, I think I'm good. Thank you, Susie. I appreciate that introduction. It really means a lot. And some of you who know Susie, she's one of my favorite people in the world. So it's always great to be in the same room with Susie Griswold. And I'm glad to be here with you today. So how many here know my stories? Anybody here familiar with it? Okay, most of you. Good. Well, you get to hear it again. How's that sound? Also, I have to say I'm really glad there's a bunch of doctors in the room, because I did one too many squats a couple days ago, and I'm going to need some pain pills later. Okay, so I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer when I was 26 years old. And it was December 2003. It was a few days before Christmas. And, for those of you who don't know much about colon cancer, the symptoms are pretty vague. A lot of times people have it and they don't know for a long time. And my symptoms started about 6 months before I was diagnosed. And it was sort of a weird abdominal pain that would come and go that did not feel like a stomach ache. That's the best way I can describe it. And it was just sort of twinges of pain, a little dull aching here and there. It's sort of a deep pain that was hard to pinpoint. And I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I have an ulcer or something, and I ignored it for most of the year, but it progressively got worse. So went to the doctor, was referred around. Eventually, they did a colonoscopy. And when I woke up from that procedure, they said, we found a golf ball-sized tumor in your large intestine. They sent a biopsy to the lab. A couple days later, I got the call, you have colon cancer. So at that point in my life, I was a pretty clueless cancer patient. I had no personal family history of cancer. I'd never had any close friends go through it. So I really didn't understand the disease. I didn't understand treatment. And I just assumed that, whatever the treatment was the best they had to offer. And I was told, look, we got to get you into surgery right away and get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you. So I went in to surgery on December 30th. They took out a third of my large intestine. When I woke up, they said, it's worse than we thought. You're stage 3C, which means it had spread to your lymph nodes. We took out everything we could see. We think we got it all, but you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. Now, the reason they do chemotherapy for colon cancer, especially after surgery, is because what we know now is that cancer cells, many of you probably understand this, one cancer cell is too small to see, right? In fact, by the time cancer is big enough to detect, you have a lesion or a tumor that could have 1 billion cancer cells or more. And as soon as a lesion starts to form, cancer cells leave the primary tumor site and they circulate throughout your body. And they're looking for other places to set up camp and form new tumors. Fortunately, your immune system is designed to identify and eliminate cancer cells. Isn't that great? That's a good thing. That's intelligent design. Praise the Lord. You have immune cells, natural killer cells, T cells, B cells. You have cells in your body that are designed to identify and eliminate cancer cells. So most of these circulating tumor cells do not form new tumors. They are destroyed by your immune system. But in some cases they do. So the job of chemotherapy is to kill any rapidly dividing cell like a cancer cell. Of course, we know that means a lot of other cells in the body, and there's a lot of collateral damage, and many of you have seen that. So I initially accepted that, okay, I guess I'm doing chemo, right? This is my life now. I'm 26 years old. My life is over. I'm a cancer patient. I don't know. Am I going to even see 30? It was pretty discouraging. And I was definitely in a state of shock and despair and hopelessness. But I was reminded of a scripture, which is Romans 8:28. Anybody know that one? God works all things for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And I thought, man, okay, this is a test of my faith right here. God works all things for the good of those who love him. Do I love God? Yes. Is he going to work this for my good? I hope so. I'm going to believe that he is, right? So this is what faith is. Faith is choosing to believe. So I chose to believe that was true, right? That God would work it for my good. I didn't like it, but it did give me a little bit of peace and a little bit of hope, right? In this really, really dark time in my life. So I'm in the hospital a couple days after the surgery. It might have been the next day. It was kind of blurry. I was on a lot of pain medication. They brought in my first meal. My first meal, after they took out a third of my large intestine, which coincidentally we're serving at lunch, is the Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe is everyone's favorite. And interesting thing about Sloppy Joe is they don't serve them at restaurants because nobody likes them. Right? The only place that I knew you could get a Sloppy Joe would be summer camp, the military, prison, and, surprise, in the hospital if you have cancer or maybe you just had a heart attack. So, so I was surprised to see that. The other thing that happened in the hospital that kind of got the wheels turning was a few days later they told me I could go home, and my surgeon came in to check on me, and I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? Because I had just had a third of my large intestine removed. And you got this tube, and it goes from mouth to anus, right? And everything you eat goes down the tube, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to eat the wrong thing and screw this up, right? Is hot sauce a problem, or Doritos too sharp? What can I eat? What am I not supposed to eat? And his answer was, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer. Right? So there was no food that was off limits. Doesn't matter what you eat. That was it. Right? That was all the advice I got from my surgeon on digestive health. So I go home. I'm recovering from surgery, and I am thinking about my life and my future. And the idea of chemotherapy didn't make sense to me. The idea of poisoning my way back to health didn't make sense. And but I didn't know what else to do. And I certainly didn't have a medical background or a scientific background. And I didn't know anyone who'd gone through cancer. So I was basically operating on instincts and intuition. And I prayed. I said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. My wife and I prayed together. And I just prayed this prayer of desperation, but also of faith. And I just said, I trust you. I believe that you're going to provide for me, that you're going to make a way for me. And I was also meditating and believing Psalm 34:19, which says that the righteous may have many afflictions, but the Lord delivers them from them all. And I said, that's my verse right there. The Lord delivers me from this. And so 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a guy who lived in Alaska. He sends it to me in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was a friend of my dad's. And that book was called God's Way to Ultimate Health by George Malkmus. And sometimes it just takes one person's story to change your life, right? One person's story can completely change the course of your life, right? Anybody agree? Anybody seen this happen? Someone just pointed at me. That's a good feeling. Thank you. You know what usually doesn't change your life? A double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. Okay. That rarely changes anyone's life. Okay. But one story can change your life. And I read this man's story. Turns out he had colon cancer back in the 1970s. He was a pastor. He'd seen numerous church members go through cancer treatment. His own mother went through cancer treatment, suffered and died. He believed the treatment was ultimately what killed her. Then he finds out he has colon cancer, and he decided, well, I don't want to do what everybody else has done because it didn't seem to work. And he happened to have another pastor buddy who said, hey man, you need to go back to the Garden of Eden and start eating raw fruits and vegetables and juicing. And so he decided to do that. A year later, no tumor. His body had healed. And I'm reading his story, and I was so captivated by his story and so encouraged by it. And it made so much sense to me because he was making the case that we know now, based on science, that most chronic disease is caused by our diet and lifestyle choices. In fact, roughly 80% of premature death is caused by tobacco, poor diet, and lack of exercise. Three factors that we all have control over in our lives. So, chronic disease is not bad luck, and it's rarely bad genes. Unfortunately, cancer patients, when they go to the doctor, they almost always say, why did I get cancer? How did this happen to me? And the answer they get, 9 times out of 10, is, well, we don't know. It may be genetic or it may just be bad luck. And what that does to the patient is it completely disempowers them. It turns them into a powerless victim of disease. And that is a horrible thing to do to a person, to remove their power. And basically, when you tell a patient, well, we don't know what it is, and it's nothing you did. No, you don't need to change your life, right? We're so sorry. Here's a hug. Here's a treat. Here's a coffee. Here's some goodies, right? Here's a comfy chair to sit in, right? You're pandering, but you're not serving that person. You're not building them up. You're actually making them into a victim. And so when the patient leaves the clinic, they go home and nothing changes. And they just say, well, my doctor said it's nothing I did. In fact, the only thing that I need to do is show up for treatment. That's the only thing you can do to help yourself. And that's a lie. It's not true. We know there are numerous studies on cancer survival, and we know that the choices that a person makes between treatments can make all the difference between survival and death. The way they live their life, their mindset, their attitude, their diet, their lifestyle choices, and stress all contribute to health. And I was so encouraged by Dr. Turner's talk because it's the exact same things he was saying, right? There is so much to health that has nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. It has everything to do with your choices. And in most cases, pharmaceuticals are not producing health, right? They're only mitigating the symptoms of disease. And patients aren't getting well, they're just coping, right? They're coping with a disease. And so, of course, I didn't know any of this at 26 years old with cancer. Didn't know any of this stuff. But I had a sense that I wanted to help myself heal. I wanted to take responsibility for my life and my health. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to take action, right? I did not want to be a powerless victim. And so I, again, read George's book and overnight decided to change my life immediately. Overnight, I'm like, I'm doing this. Went to the grocery store, loaded up the cart full of fruits and vegetables, bought a juicer, and I was on my way. And there are things that you can change in your life overnight. You can change your diet overnight. You can exercise today, right? You can start making big changes immediately, right? And those big levers, when you pull them, when you pull the big levers, you get big results. Not in one day, but over time with consistent effort, okay? This is the point. Those big levers start the healing momentum. They get the ball rolling, right? And as you get the ball rolling, then you can start making the other changes to your life. And so what I realized is after adopting a raw food diet, took about a week to kind of get the hang of it. And then after that, I was feeling pretty good. Lots of energy. My mindset changed. I was happier. My brain chemistry was different. And I realized the power of changing my diet unlocked something in me. And I realized, what else can I change? Right? So that was like the gateway drug to radical self-change. Right? Broccoli. Dr. Michael Greger likes to call Ilacor B. Ilacor B. Broccoli backwards. Sounds like a drug. So you would think, at that point in my journey, things I was feeling very optimistic, very encouraged, very hopeful. This guy healed cancer. Maybe I can heal, right? He healed, maybe I can heal. And I have to say, my talk was titled Winning Over Cancer. And I didn't pick the name of the talk. I'm not sure who did. But let me just say this. It isn't about winning, right? It's not a battle. Cancer is not a battle to be won or lost, okay? If someone dies of cancer, they didn't lose. They're not a loser, all right? Cancer is a disease. The goal is to heal it, right? That's the point. It's about healing. And so this militaristic terminology that you're a fighter, you're a warrior, it's a battle, right? The reason this is used is because many years ago, some very smart marketers figured out if we can convince cancer patients it's a battle and they have to fight and they're a warrior, then they will agree to suffer. That's how we get them to agree to suffer through these treatments, right? It's a pretty sinister thing if you think about it. And we know in the early days of chemotherapy, nobody lived. In fact, in 60 years, the death rate from cancer has only come down. Does anybody know? 5%. 5% reduction in death from cancer in the U.S. in 60 years. Think about that. That is horrible, right? Abject failure. There are some cancers we've done really well with. Testicular cancer, childhood leukemia, and lymphomas. The treatments, they've made big progress. Average survival, 90% live 10 years or more. That's great. That's great. But most cancers, solid tumor cancers, breast, colon, liver, lung, ovarian, cervical, these cancers, their survival has not changed much. The death rate. That's the most important figure. So, knowing that should give you pause. And as a patient advocate, one thing that I try to do is try to empower patients with information so they can make an informed decision, so they can make the best decision for them as to the course of their treatment, and to show them the things they can do to help themselves along the way to increase their odds of survival. Right? So there's two things happening at once, right? You need to be very cautious about what you say yes to and know the risks and the benefits in terms of treatment. Then you also need to know, hey, there's so much you can do to change your life. There's so much you can do. And this is not just validated by anecdotes. This is validated by multiple studies from around the world over decades. So that's encouraging, right? It's encouraging to know people are healing. They're surviving against the odds because they decided to change their life. So everyone in this room has the power to change your life, to either help yourself prevent cancer or increase your odds of survival. That's good. That's what I'm here to tell you. That's the message. So what are the most important things? Okay, number one, Remember what I said, 80% of premature deaths, diet, tobacco, lack of exercise. Well, up to 90% of cancers are caused by the same factors. So number one's diet. The plant-based diet is the most powerful diet for human health. Fruits and vegetables are amazing. They're so good for you. And if you focus your meals on eating plant food from the earth, you are providing your body with a multitude of vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, and thousands of what are called phytonutrients or phytochemicals. These are compounds, chemicals, nutrients found only in plants. You don't get them at McDonald's. You don't get them from animal food. You only get them from plant food. So the more plants you eat, the better. In fact, there was a study that there's a study on breast cancer patients that found that women who were diagnosed with breast cancer who ate an average of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day and walked 30 minutes per day had a 50% decreased risk of death after 9 years. Think about that. 5 servings of fruits and vegetables and walking 30 minutes a day. Right? I think pretty much everybody in here can handle that, right? Now, the optimal is 10 servings per day or more of fruits and vegetables. Now, you might be thinking, like, 10 servings? What is that, 10 meals? A serving is about half a cup to a cup. So it's about half a cup of cooked, a full cup of raw. So 1 plate full of veggies is 4 or 5 servings. Okay, so you can hit this easily. I went from eating 1 to 2 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, if you count like tomato on the cheeseburger or the fries, to consuming every single day 15 to 20 servings of fruits and vegetables. Every single day, day after day after day. Raw, organic fruits and vegetables every day. I was overdosing on nutrition. That was the goal. I'm overdosing on nutrition. If I'm not going to do chemo, which I decided not to do, basically in my mind I postponed it. It wasn't like I'm never going to do this, but I got excited about changing my life, about building my body up, about doing everything in my power to help myself heal. I was excited about that. That's where my passion and my energy and my enthusiasm was. And so I decided this is the road I'm going down. And I also trusted that this was an answer to prayer, right? Remember, I prayed, I got a book, and I just thought, this is it, right? I prayed, I got something, okay, I'm going to step out in faith, and I'm going to do this. Now, the hard part was that everybody around me thought I was insane. They thought I lost my mind, and that's kind of hard, right? It's kind of hard when everyone around you says you're wrong, okay? When you pray and you get an answer and everybody says, nope, no you didn't, right? So in the beginning, my mom supported me, and that was about it. And it was pretty tough. It was really tough. And you know what? A lot of cancer patients are in that same situation where, they have their gut, their instincts, their intuition. Maybe the Holy Spirit is telling them to do one thing, and everyone else is telling them to do something else. And they just end up doing what everybody wants them to do, to appease, right? To appease their family, to appease the doctor. And I have a lot of sympathy and compassion because for someone in that position, because I was there, and it was really hard. It's I liken it to hacking your way through the jungle alone, right? You have no support. Nobody's cheering you on, right? They're not making special T-shirts and baking cupcakes and standing on the sidelines at the race for you. You're not getting that if you decide to eat fruits and vegetables and juice your way through cancer. All right, you are on your own. But I just knew that if God gave me this alternate path, that He would see me through. Right? I just trusted. If I'm going to step out of the boat onto the waves, I've got to fix my eyes on Jesus and trust that He is going to make a way for me. He's going to keep me afloat. And so it forced me to go very deep in my faith that in a way I'd never had before. I never had any problems like that in my life. So that was a difficult and lonely time, but it was a time that I was challenged and I grew spiritually, and I'm so thankful for it because God also opened a lot of doors for me. And I went to see an oncologist. He told me I was insane if I don't do chemo. I didn't go back to him. I went to see a naturopathic doctor. He prayed with me. He encouraged me. He was the first person to say, "You're doing the right thing." And that was huge for me. I mean, I cannot articulate how blessed I was by that meeting. And he connected me with another man who was an integrative oncologist. And he supported me, and he worked with me on my terms. And every one of you in here deserves to work with a physician that will work with you on your terms. Right? That's really important. It's a relationship, right? It's not a dictatorship, right? There's awesome doctors out there. And there's some really crappy ones too, okay? All right? No offense. I'm sure none of the crappy ones are in this room. But there's just as many bad doctors as there are bad plumbers, right? It's the same percentage. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's the same. Every profession has some good guys and some bad guys. And gals, right? So you as a patient need to work with a doctor that supports you, right? That supports you. And so I found one. And slowly I assembled this little support system. I didn't have Facebook. There was no social media. There were no local cancer support groups. There was no Healing Strong. Right? It was just me and a naturopath and an integrative oncologist and my mom. Okay? That's all it was in the beginning. My wife came around pretty quickly, though. Within a month or two, she came around. But it was tough, just getting through those first few months. But I tell you, I knew in my heart that I got very clear that I wanted to either live or die on my own terms. That was what I decided to do. And I knew I had a lot to change in my life, and I was excited to see what would happen if I made these changes. So I want to talk about a couple things. Obviously, we're talking about the things you can do in that context. So number one is eat more fruits and vegetables, okay? You don't have to be a vegan. In our community, people that are trying to heal cancer, we encourage them to be 100% plant-based, mostly raw food, just to get as much anti-cancer nutrition in your body, especially the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, onions, and garlic, right? These are the most potent. They're on the cover of my cookbook. It's the giant salad. This is what I ate every single day for lunch and dinner, every single day, over and over and over and over. I was pumping in the nutrition. I was drinking eight servings of vegetable juice every day, carrot, beet, celery. So that's 64 ounces of vegetable juice, 2 giant salads, fresh fruit smoothies. I was just flooding my body, my blood, my cells with nutrition. Okay? Second thing is exercise. Exercise is so underrated. There are numerous studies on exercise and cancer survival, and it just works. Exercise strengthens your immune system. It actually makes you happier. It is an antidepressant. It improves your blood pressure. It reduces stress. It increases circulation, right? It strengthens your muscles and bones. Exercise is so good. And it doesn't matter what type. It just matters that you do it. So making 30 minutes a day, putting it on the calendar, right? Get your phone out, block it off. This is exercise time. Doesn't matter when you do it, right? I mean, just find a time to do it. So I added that to my routine, started exercising, moving my body, sweating. You know, if you can do it in the sunshine, that's even better. Outside, fresh air, get a sweat going, right? You're getting multiple benefits, right? You're compounding the benefits of exercise. But even if you're in your house on a treadmill, it's still great, okay? Running, biking, yoga, rock climbing, jiu-jitsu, jazzercise, Zumba, karate. It's all good, okay? Now, diet and exercise also affect your weight, right? The number one cause of cancer, anybody know it? I heard sugar. I heard obesity. Come on, people. It's cigarettes. Cigarettes are the number one cause. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, I've heard that. Number two cause is obesity. Okay? That's the thing that most people haven't heard, is obesity is the second leading cause of cancer. Well, why is that? Well, when you're overweight, these excess body fat, excess fat cells, they produce estrogen, which fuels cancer growth. They produce molecules that are inflammatory. They also suppress your immune system. And what recent research just a few years ago found that immune cells in an obese environment are also obese. Isn't that wild? So your immune cells that are supposed to be fighting cancer become clogged with fatty acids. They become sluggish and slow and ineffective. That's also why obesity is the number one risk factor for severe COVID infection, right? Because the immune system is weak, it's suppressed, it's not working as well as it should. So diet and exercise also help you get down to a healthy weight. When you eat tons of fruits and vegetables and you exercise, you're operating at a much lower calorie intake, and that's good, right? Because then your body gets to an ideal weight, your immune system starts working better, everything starts working better. So diet, exercise, and obesity all are they're all a part of the same puzzle, right? The same solution. Now, your bad habits also contribute to cancer. We talked about smoking being number one. Alcohol causes cancer, right? So, prescription drugs. Anybody seen a drug commercial where at the end they say, may cause certain types of cancer, right? While people are like, dancing, right? They're riding a bicycle built for two, telling you that your eyes are going to start bleeding and you're going to lose, loss of bowel function and, all these wonderful side effects, right? Yeah, it's very subversive how they distract you with all the happy life images while they're telling you the most horrific things that can happen to your body, right? But cancers, right, may increase the risk of certain types of cancer. You hear this at the end of so many drug commercials. So you've got to be aware. Pharmaceuticals can cause cancer. They can cause heart disease. They can cause kidney problems. They can cause more disease. Illegal drugs, obviously, not good either. So breaking those bad habits, those addictive and destructive habits, are pretty important in the process. Now, underneath all of those causes of cancer, there's an insidious cause that's driving so many chronic diseases. And you've heard some talks already. Do you want to guess what it is? There it is. It's stress. Stress is really a root cause of most chronic disease. And stress is kind of nebulous, right? It's kind of this term that it's like, what is it? What does it mean? What is it? We all know what it feels like. So I want to hopefully break this down in the most simple terms so that you can not only understand it, but then you can make changes in your life to remove stress, because it really is harmful. Because if you can change your diet, you can start exercising, right? You can stop smoking, you can stop drinking. There's a lot of things you can do, and they will all help you. But if you don't address the root cause, right, the underlying stress, it's number one, it's very hard to maintain those healthy lifestyle changes, and two, you may not get well. So stress is negative emotion, right? Negative emotion produces stress. What are negative emotions? Well, they're caused by negative thoughts. It starts in your mind. There are three different categories. You've got past, present, and future. Negative emotions from the past, that's guilt, shame, bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness. Okay? So these are the thoughts and emotions that are connected to your past. In your present, it's things like insecurity, envy, jealousy, okay, prejudice. And then in the future, it's worry, fear, and anxiety. So if you think about the way so many of us live our lives, we're bouncing back and forth between all of these negative emotional states. One minute, we're thinking about some person that hurt us in the past and how angry we still are with them. The next minute, we're looking at somebody on social media that's on a ski trip, and we're super jealous, right? Or they're at the beach. The next minute, we're worried about, what's going to happen with the germ, right? So, this is what we're doing, right? We're just bouncing back and forth between all these negative emotional states. And so, once you become aware that you're doing it, you can actually interrupt the process, right? They call this mindfulness. Being aware of your thoughts and how your thoughts affect your emotions. And by the way, your emotions affect your physical body, right? So when you're in a state of stress, when you feel stress in your mind, it translates to your body and your body responds because you have threat physiology. It's called fight or flight. Your body starts pumping adrenaline and cortisol. These hormones are really great to help you survive a burning building or a home invasion, right? Or a lion chasing you. But when they're elevated, they are suppressing your immune system. That's not good. Adrenaline and cortisol promote inflammation. They suppress your immune system. They interfere with your brain function. Basically, they turn off your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, where you think logically and rationally, and you become very impulsive, right, when you are stressed. And so you can't make good decisions when you're stressed. You can't make good decisions when you're in a state of fear. So knowing what stress is doing to your mind and your body, hopefully, will make you even more determined to get out of stress, right? To interrupt it as it starts to take hold. So mindfulness is catching your thoughts. The Bible says take every thought captive, right? Take every thought captive. Well, that is the practice of catching yourself thinking in a way that you don't want to think, that that's not good for you to think. So, for example, when I had cancer, fear was an everyday problem for me. It wasn't a problem before cancer. I wasn't the type of person that would get nervous and worried and fearful. I wasn't wired that way. Some people are, but I was not. Then I got cancer, and now every single day I'm dealing with this. Worry, fear, anxiety. What's going to happen? Am I going to get sicker? Am I going to get worse? Am I going to suffer? Is there going to be pain? What's going to happen to my wife? Like my family? What's going to be my legacy, my story? Am I just going to, is this it? There's scary thoughts, And so cancer taught me to give my worries and fear to God. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough problems of its own. Jesus Christ gives good advice. Okay? Write that down. Jesus Christ, better than me. He gives really good advice. I just repeat his advice, and it makes me sound smart. So don't worry about tomorrow. He's just saying, don't do it. So when I would catch myself worried or fearful, I would stop in the moment and I would say, okay, God, I'm not going to be afraid. I trust you, right? I'm giving you my fear, and I'm just laying it down at the feet of Jesus. I'm laying it down. I'm not going to be afraid. I trust you. Show me what I need to do. Show me what I need to change. That was the prayer. And I prayed it over and over and over. Every time the fear would creep in, that's how I would deal with it. Okay? So that is a very powerful practice that we all need to do. When you feel anxious about anything, right? Paul said, be anxious for nothing. Make your requests known to God, right? You got problems, you got concerns. Don't be anxious. Just say, God, you know what I need? I'm trusting you to provide it. So you can catch yourself in the middle of jealousy and say, you know what? I'm being jealous right now. I'm just going to choose not to. You know, their life looks great on social media. I have no idea what's going on with it. Let me just take a minute and count my blessings, right? So gratitude is the secret to happiness. Is gratitude, is giving thanks to the Lord, for He is good. Right? Anybody read that in their Bible? So, in the middle of cancer, I'm dealing with resentment and bitterness. I mean, I was a very kind of not emotionally healthy person. Even though I was a Christian and I was a believer, I struggled with, envy and jealousy, and I was competitive and type A, and I was, I was never happy for anyone else's success. I was jealous. And I was insecure. And I had a chip on my shoulder. And I had something to prove, right? That's the kind of person I was. And I realized, I can't continue to be that person. Right? I have to change the way I act and the way I react. I have to change the way I think. And, Dr. Turner mentioned this. There was a quote he put up there, and I don't remember the quote exactly, but it reminded me of this incredible research that, when you change the way you think and the way you react, when you deliberately interrupt your thought pattern, you rewire your brain. There are physical changes that happen in your brain. New connections are made. The neuroplasticity of your brain changes when you decide to think differently. Right? So practicing gratitude is an incredible thing to do, because anytime I get frustrated or angry or whatever, right? Or jealous, I can stop in the moment and I can say, you know what? Wait a minute. What have I got going on in my life that's good? Right? I've definitely got things to be unhappy about. Cancer, right? My bank account, right? The neighborhood I'm living in. Wasn't great. Gunshots. But what have I got? I've got a wife who loves me. I've got a home. I've got a bed to sleep in. I do have food in the fridge, right? I've got enough money to pay the next set of bills, right? I've got a pretty great dog, right? I've got so much. I can see. Oh, yeah, I can hear. I can get out of bed. I can feed myself. Right? I can go actually run. I can go outside and run. And so as I start reminding myself of all the blessings I have in my life, my mindset, my attitude changes. Right? And I still do this. Right? My most powerful gratitude hack is this right here, this thought. That I can, in just an instant, I can break just a bad mood by just telling myself this one thing, and that is, right now, there's someone dying in the hospital that would give anything to trade places with you. Right? They would love to have your problems. That's all it takes. That one thought. And I'm out of the bad mood. I'm like, oh yeah, life's great. Life is great. Glad to be here. So, giving your worries and fears to God, practicing gratitude, catching yourself being, angry or jealous or resentful or whatever towards people in the present, and quickly shifting out of that state. And then, final thing is dealing with your past. Dr. Turner also mentioned the ACE study, adverse child experiences, right? A lot of us have had them. A lot of people in this room have had rough childhoods, right? Neglect, abandonment, people letting us down, breaking our trust, abuse, right? Those things are real. They've happened. And there is a way to free yourself from the pain of your past. And, that study is very important, that ACE study, but there's something that has to be said about it, which is it's not a linear predictor, right? It doesn't, because you've had adverse child experiences, does not mean you are destined to have problems, right? Are you more likely? Yes. But it's not programmed into you. You can break that cycle. And the way you break it, and the way you free yourself is forgiveness. That's the way you do it. Forgiveness is the most powerful thing you can do for your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. It's the most powerful thing. Because the pain from your past, I want to make sure everybody understands this. The pain from your past will lead you to medicate. Right? When you're in a state of pain, you will self-medicate. Stress will make you medicate, right? Worry and fear will make you self-medicate, right? But pain from your past. So, how do we self-medicate? Overeating, tobacco, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, right? Gambling, pornography, what else? A shopaholic, right? Binge watching, too much social media. These are all ways that we distract our conscious mind, right? We will find ways as humans to distract ourselves from our problems. That's called self-medication. And most of the time, they are not good for us. Thank you. Right? So that's how stress leads us to self-medicate with habits, diet and lifestyle habits that produce health problems down the road. Do you see the connection? Right? This is the stress connection. This is why. It's not the stress that made you sick directly. It's the stress that persisted in your life, that triggered you to medicate, that started this ball rolling, right? It's sort of this negative cycle in which your health spirals downward over time. Well, guess what? You can interrupt that cycle and you can start spinning it the other way. You know what happens when you turn the negative cycle around? You turn that vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle. The virtuous cycle, your health spirals up. Okay? It gets better. Your life gets better, right? But this is where your deliberate action matters, right? Your choices every day, right? The thing is, you can't fix tomorrow, you can't fix yesterday, but you can fix today. Like, you can make choices today to create a better life tomorrow. Does anyone here believe in the principle of sowing and reaping? Right? You reap what you sow, so you can sow seeds of health and reap a harvest of health. Or you can sow seeds of disease and reap a harvest of disease. And you're sowing seeds each day with your choices. Right? It's not complicated. And so if you just think about what you do between sunup and sundown, right, in your waking hours, right? Let's get real simple here. What am I putting in my mouth? How am I taking care of my body? How am I thinking? How am I acting and reacting to people around me? And am I in a state of constant stress and anxiety, or am I going through my day in a state of peace? Right? And the choice is yours. You got to work at it, but the choice is yours. And so, of course, we know that Jesus is the Prince of Peace. So the more time you spend with Jesus, the more peace you have. You get that peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's the peace in the storm, which I found in the middle of cancer. So I found peace in the storm. And guess what? When you're in a state of peace, your body comes out of fight or flight. Your nervous system shifts from what's called sympathetic dominance into parasympathetic dominance. And when you're in parasympathetic, you're in rest and digest mode. And that's healing, right? That's the healing state. It's very hard to heal when you're in fight or flight. That's when you stay chronically inflamed with pain and disease. So it starts in your mind, catching your thoughts, choosing to think positively, choosing to find the silver lining, choosing to forgive people who've hurt you, right? Choosing to practice gratitude, choosing to give your fear and worry to God, right? See, this is all choice, right? This is all things that you can do. You're not a victim. You're not pre-programmed. You're not just, this sort of robotic, programmed entity with a fate that you're just walking toward. Your choices are determining your life, and the choices you make today create your life tomorrow. So God has given us free will, and He's given us all this power over our lives, and we can make choices to create a great life or to create a pretty miserable one, right? And so the point here is not to blame anyone, but I realized that the way I was living was killing me. That's it. The way I was living was killing me. And if that's true, then I need to make some changes. And if I make some changes, maybe things get better. If I'm contributing to my illness, maybe I can contribute to my wellness with my daily choices. Now I know it's true. Back then I hoped it was true. Right? That's the difference. Life experience. So, how much time do we have left? Everybody's stomachs are grumbling, so I don't want to keep you too long here. So I've got a few more minutes. So what I'd like to do is just lead you in a forgiveness exercise. Would that be okay? Because I want to teach you how to do it. Because I think the one thing that's missing, in the church, just generally speaking, there's a lot of talk about forgiveness, but there's not a lot of practical, here's how, right? And we need to know how to do it. So, a couple important things. One, Dr. Turner mentioned it. Again, he teed me up beautifully. Jesus talked about forgiveness a lot. It was a core tenet of His ministry, was forgiveness. And He talked about it over and over again. I mean, what did He say? He said, His disciples said, how many times should we forgive? He said 70 times 7. Well, that's too many times to count. So 490 times. Who's going to keep up with that, right? You're going to keep forgiving. Number one, He said, if you don't forgive on earth, your heavenly Father won't forgive you. That's terrifying, right? That is the number one reason you should forgive right there, right? Right? You don't want to be standing at judgment having not forgiven the people who've hurt you. That sounds really risky to me. When Jesus was on the cross, one of the last things He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? He made a choice, and that's what forgiveness is. It's a choice to forgive. It's a choice to not hold it against them anymore. That's forgiveness. It's a choice, not a feeling. Guess who didn't feel like it? Right? Didn't feel like it, I promise. I wasn't there, but I'm positive Jesus didn't feel like forgiving anybody from the cross. But He chose to do it, to show us that it can be done. Right? Because nobody here has been nailed to a cross. Right? No one here has endured that suffering. Not diminishing what you have endured, but it wasn't that. Right? And so Jesus chose to forgive from the cross to show us how important it was and is for us to do it. So, here's how. What I decided to do, I'm not telling you yet, but what I decided to do is as I started to read, because I didn't just read one book, by the way. I went from book to book to book to book, read so many survivor books as I could find, and as many holistic, integrative, doctor-written books I could find, and courses. I just devoured as much information as I could on health and healing, especially healing cancer. And so what I was surprised to find was that this root cause of bitterness and unforgiveness to cancer, this root cause of anger, and cancer. And I dismissed it at first. At first, I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, I guess. That's not me. That's not my problem. Right? I'm good. I'm cool. I'm cool with everybody. I don't have any problems with anybody. But that wasn't true. Okay? It was not true. I did have resentments. I was harboring bitterness and resentments toward people from my past. And I think what we tend to do is we stuff that stuff down so deep that we feel like it's not there. It's not a problem for me, right? But I kept just bumping into this same sort of information, this same message, and finally I was like, well, all right, I don't want to leave any stone unturned here. Let me just forgive everybody who's ever hurt me, right? I'm going to forgive everybody who's ever hurt me. And in order to do that, you have to sit down and think through your life, right? You have to open the filing cabinet where all the painful memories are stored, right? And pull out the files one by one and go through them. And so you have to revisit the painful memories so you can deal with them once and for all. And so I did. So I would, just get in a prayerful place, in a quiet place, and just think through my life. And it helps to do it chronologically, but sometimes people just come up randomly too. But if you think back as far as you can to, being just a little kid, right? Being in kindergarten or whatever, and you just think about, who was mean to me? Who was mean to me on the playground, right? And those are insignificant, but they can still be hurtful, right? The little stuff can hurt too, and it all adds up. So one by one, I just started forgiving people by name for whatever they did, for being mean to me on the playground or whatever. And then worked my way through my whole life. So here's how you forgive. It's very simple. And I want to lead you in a prayer to forgive. So we're just going to pray together. And I just want you to pick one person in your life. Okay? And maybe there's somebody on your mind right now, just as me talking about it. Maybe there's a person on your mind. And let's choose to forgive them. Okay? And remember, forgiveness is a choice. It's not a feeling. Okay? And the thing is, your feeling changes when you make the decision to forgive. That's when your feelings change. So, when you give them to God, you're opening up your heart for Him to come in and heal it. Because if you're holding on to anger and bitterness and resentment, these people have hurt your heart. You have a bruised heart. You have a sick heart. Right? Forgiveness heals your heart. That's what it does. So you're not forgiving for them. You're forgiving for you to release yourself from a prison of pain. Right? The key's on the inside of the door. It's called forgiveness. You can let yourself out if you want to. And if you don't, then further down the road is disability, disease, and possibly death. Right? That's how serious anger, bitterness, stress, unforgiveness, all this stuff, it's how destructive it is. It really is the most powerful thing you can do is forgive, and the most destructive thing you can do is not forgive. So the forgiveness prayer, we're going to pray together, and I just want you to just choose somebody, and we'll do it. Okay. So just pray with me like this. God, you know what they did. And you know how I feel about it. You know it, they hurt me. But I'm choosing to forgive them. And I'm letting it go. And I'm giving it to you. They're all yours. I'm not going to carry this pain, this bitterness, this resentment anymore. And I'm asking you to forgive me for holding on to this for so long. And I'm asking you to bless them. I'm asking you to bless their health and their life and their family and their work. God, I'm asking you to bless them. And you know I don't want you to, but I'm asking you anyway. Because Jesus, you said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I'm asking in Jesus' name. Amen. So that's the prayer. That's it, right? You just give him permission to deal with this person, right? Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. You all know that verse? Right? You're releasing, right, your desire for vengeance and justice and trusting that God will work it out, right? That they will reap what they sow. You can know that's true. You may not see it happen, but it'll happen. And releasing that to him frees you. It releases you from the weight, from the pain that you've been carrying. And so you just forgave one person. That's great. Okay? Write it down, right? Because the forgiveness is a decision for life. This is what's important, right? It's for life. I forgive them for life, period. They do something else, I'll forgive them for that. Right? Forgiveness is like a healthy diet. It only works if you stick with it. Okay? Right? It only works if you stick with it. If next week you decide, oh, forget it, I'm pissed at that person, right? You're doing it wrong. Okay? Now, here's what really will happen. Feelings will start to try to creep in, right? Those resentment and those bitterness feelings will start to creep in. And in that moment, you have to say, no, I forgave them, right? I'm not going to let the bitterness and resentment creep it back into my heart and into my mind and into my body, right? Nope, I forgave them, wrote it down, Saturday, February 4th, is that right? Right? At 12:26 p.m. I forgave them. It's done, right? You don't have to forgive them 20 times. It's just the one time, and you've done it. So I want to encourage all of you to work through your life. And some of you maybe forgave somebody that cut you off in traffic today. Great, right? That's great, good. Some of you maybe forgave somebody that hurt you real bad. That's fantastic. But I want to encourage you to just take time in your prayer life to just think through and just get all of those people, right? Get them all out of there. Forgive them all. And so as I work through this, I just forgave everybody until there was no one left, right? There was no one left to forgive. And I would just think, who else? Anybody? Somebody say something mean to me so I can forgive you. No, but I do have many opportunities being a public figure on the internet. And people are mean to me all the time. So I forgive them. I read the mean stuff and I'm like, God bless you, I forgive you. I've gotten really good at it. And so the message there is be quick to forgive, right? So deal with everybody in your past by name, one by one. Do the work, forgive them, give them to God, and be quick to forgive the people that are going to be, irritants in your future, okay? Just be quick to do that. Okay, so again, thank you all so much. I just appreciate you all coming out on a Saturday to be here, and it's been just a joy to share my story and hopefully encourage you and give you some things to think about and maybe a little to-do list.